Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and this is my On the Tubes episode for the week. And this one's a little bit more filled up than last week as I got to finish The Outsider on HBO, Kidding, second season on Showtime, and The New Pope, also on HBO. And I remember watching the first two episodes of The Outsider when that first came on the HBO and being really impressed, being really intrigued. Jason Bateman being a huge part of that beginning of that series, him directing those episodes, and it was a big hook. And based off of what happens in those first two episodes, things shift gears to focusing on Ben Mendelsohn, who plays a detective in this town, and also Cynthia Erivo, who winds up coming in and working on this case of this mysterious, how are these people being in two places at once? And throughout the show, I feel like there's parts of it that are really intriguing, really intense. And in those other moments, it's like I felt like something wasn't grabbing me. And the more I think about it, there's a lot of subtler details, and this is a really well-made show. And it's intriguing, and I bought into what's going on, and I always wanted to get to the end to figure out what was going on. Wasn't always the most drawn in throughout the episode. Some of them did better jobs of hooking you and having some really intense sequences and some ideas that I felt like maybe if this was trimmed down a bit and a little streamlined, this would have been even more effective for me. But all I know is, as this built up to that finale, it really started getting my attention again. And that could have explained some of that, I guess, second act of the season kind of just slowing things down and maybe not moving at a purposeful pace. And this season finale, which originally I thought this was just a mini-series, now there's talks that maybe it's not just a mini-series and there might be another season, but that whole last episode is so intriguing and interesting and haunting and emotionally impactful and shocking, honestly, all the way up until the end. So I feel like this show's season's first and third acts really, really work. And it just kind of gets bogged down in the middle, trying to balance so many things. And I feel like it's still really worth watching. It's definitely a really great Stephen King adaptation. It's just, it might not hook you throughout every single one of these episodes, but it is such an intriguing story and such a great mystery and how it's posed. And by the end, I really wanted to know how it ended. So I would recommend The Outsider. Obviously, it's on HBO. If you have HBO, you can just watch it through. Now, the second season of Kidding, I was really, really impressed by. I really, really liked the first season, and this one goes deeper, digs deeper, and is a little even more ambitious with some of the episodes and how they're structured. There's episode where Mr. Pickles is caught in his own mind, stuck inside the world that's inside his show with all of his creatures, and him having to confront these things. There's an episode of his show. And there's flashback episodes between his relationship and Judy Greer, and all, I feel like a great show is ambitious enough from episode to episode, trying different things. You don't just feel like you're watching the same formula over again. BoJack Horseman's a show that really inspires me because of those kinds of choices of doing ambitious standalone episodes where it takes an idea that's still important to the overall story and doing something different with it. And Kidding does the same thing. And Jim Carrey gives an amazing performance in this show. So is Frank Langella, Catherine Keener, Judy Greer. Everybody's asked to do all these different things and delivers so well. And Jim Carrey at the center of this. There's some scenes with Frank Langella towards the end of the season that are heartbreaking and really powerful. And all these different kinds of things that it deals with. Loss and guilt and dealing with divorce is a big part of this season, and for multiple characters. And this is something that is so offbeat and dark and funny, but something that's very resonant because it's still able to convey specific themes in a powerful and more meaningful way. And I really recommend Kidding. I absolutely love this show. I can't, like, I missed it coming back, so I had to catch up, but, like, they do 2 episodes a week, and it's 10 episodes, and they're, like, 30-minute at most episodes. Then it's, like, it was 5 weeks. So you could catch up on this pretty quickly. Now, the last show I'm going to talk about this week is The New Pope, which I guess is technically the second season of The Young Pope, but whatever, you're just going to call each season a different thing, which is fine. The first episode of this season was shocking, because it was shocking how The Young Pope ended, and where you're with in this, which the theme with All Along the Watchtower with the popes is so cool. I absolutely love it. But that's just an aside. And this show gets really sexual and strange and like something you would not expect at all with the subject matter that you're dealing with these like rave dance party, like strip tease, like introduction, like themes at the beginning of this season. I'm just like, what am I watching? But that first episode, where it has like basically a wholly enclosed arc of a pope in one episode, and is dark and biting in its commentary, and when the gears shift to John Malkovich and him coming in, which honestly, I think it's hilarious that John Malkovich is playing a British guy and Jude Law is playing an American guy. Just saying. Thought that was an odd choice. But John Malkovich brings such a different kind of presence than Jude Law's character was. And it's refreshing and interesting. And he's complex. He has baggage. And like Marilyn Manson's in an episode. You see that kind of interaction. But there's an elephant in the room. It's always, you have Pope John Paul III, John Malkovich's character taking over, but you still have Pius XIII in this coma. And finally, when that moment happens, and Jude Law really comes back into this show, it creates such an interesting dynamic and where he's at and his character arc. And there's one particular moment in the last episode that was frightening and powerful all at the same time. And this show brings that character of Lenny, the Pope Pius XIII, to such a powerful arc and finale of his arc. And it makes it so interesting to see where things are going if they choose to make another season of this. And because all along you have Cardinal Violello, who's just sitting there in the background, and Silvio Orlando, such a big part of the show, and Javier Camara, who are other cardinals here that get these background roles basically, and towards the end it's just like they get these bigger roles, you get them fleshed out, they become more significant, and it's interesting to see if the show's going to shift gears and focus on them for once, because obviously the show really relies upon those big names of Jude Law and John Malkovich these first 2 seasons, but I'm interested to see if it goes somewhere differently and has a different direction if it comes to another season. But this show has style and attitude and flash that you would not expect from something like this. And when people ask me about this, I always sum it up as like, there's a scene where the Pope gets dressed in all of his popely things to Sexy and I Know It. That sums up the tone of this. And also the new theme where Pope Pius XIII is in his like little white Speedo walking through all these scantily clad women and just like eyeing him up and just dancing there, and he's like, and he's just walking. It's like doom 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 doom, and he just like looks at the camera, and he just like that smirk on his face is like, that's the tone of this. That's what we get. But this goes to dark places. It confronts some concerns about the Vatican and corruption, the Italian mafia, and this show goes places. And when it might not be perfect all the time, it's a bit messy at times, but when it really comes down to it, this is something to behold. It's something to at least experience. And it was an interesting week wrapping these all up this week, but hey, comment. Let me know if you want to talk about any of these particular shows, and I always look forward to talking movies and TV with people, but thank you as always for stopping by and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.